everyone. As I am going deeper and deeper into my study and observations of what the future holds for all of us, I'm thrilled to have with us Priyanka Khemani, the founder of Khimani Associates, a full-service law firm that is highly recognized for its entertainment and intellectual property practice. Most of her legal career has been devoted to bridging gaps in the consumption of Indian music between the East and West. So she's going to be giving us a global perspective today. Her counsel is highly regarded in eminent product launches, M&A deals in the technology and entertainment sector, as well as market entry by foreign multinationals. Priyanka Khemani has been listed as one of India's top individual lawyers by Forbes in the first edition of its India Legal Power List, and has also been recognized as one of the most powerful women in IP in India in 2021. Priyanka Khemani, this makes me so proud to do your introduction because I'm a big advocate for women in business. So firstly, congratulations on your journey so far. I'm going to be following and tracking your future for sure, because I know there's a lot coming. So congratulations on your journey so far. And thank you so much for doing this interview.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute delight.
All right. Okay. So Priyanka, as we sort of start talking about this, just to sort of warm up the conversation, you run this practice, you work with a lot of artists, you work with a lot of media and entertainment firms. Why, from your lens, is it even important to have this conversation? Why think about the future?
So I'll tell you something funny, right? Every single time that someone introduces me at an event and they're like, oh my God, you should meet Priyanka. And, she's a lawyer. And usually these are entertainment parties. So you have artists and directors and musicians and actors in attendance. And their first reaction is that, oh, very good, but I'm not in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that there is no realization that, hey, wait a minute, I need to have advice. So going back to your question, I feel the reason it's important is, and I say this to people all the time, it's like a hygiene check, right? You usually have a GP that's always on standby. You hopefully are seeing a dentist from time to time to keep your teeth clean. I feel it's the same when it comes to lawyers and legal advice. You don't need to wait for the moment that you're in legal trouble or when you don't know what's happening in your life and you're like, oh my goodness, now shit has hit the roof and I need to talk to somebody. I feel getting advice should be not just for people in entertainment. I feel just generally for a lot of us in business, a matter of routine. It's like that core team that you need to have. So I feel that's one. And number two is, again, something that I say often, there is no Entertainment Act of 2024. People always ask me, "Acha, par entertainment lawyer kya hota hai? Like, what do you do?" And really speaking, you're catering to an industry. So you're not referring to just one act. You're looking at so many different moving parts, right? Someday you're advising someone who's caught up in a narcotic scandal, someone who's made a joke that's backfired and is caught in a controversy, or there's some defamation, there's Me Too, or you're just doing, plain hardcore acquisitions, setting up a new entity. So you're looking at company law and contracts, there's employment issues. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And of course, there's core IP and, intellectual property related matters. So I feel like on any given day, there is a range of things that you're looking at and not just one specific act as people like to think of it. So I feel from that perspective, it's just important to have awareness and knowledge of what is this practice or what is this profession, and number two, what does it really entail?
Okay, great. Okay, so it looks like, people have a sort of myopic definition of a media and entertainment lawyer, but in fact that you're looking at a wide array of topics and subjects. When you look at your practice and when you look at your sector, why is it important to have a futuristic perspective? Why think about the future?
Look, I feel entertainment is here to stay, right? Come here, rain, storm, people are consuming content. And thanks to technology, the rate at which it's being made available, it's easy to produce, create, disseminate. It's not going out of style. It's here to stay. The reason I feel it's important for us, at least as entertainment lawyers and attorneys, to be forward thinking is because you've always got to think 10 steps ahead, if not more, right? Because something that I'm doing today is going to be exploited in the future. I'll give you a simple example. If you look at some of the older technology, older contracts, they were all made for a day and age where digital didn't even exist. Or even if I look at the digital era, those contracts were made for a day and age where we never thought that AI would come in and play the kind of role that it potentially plays today or has the ability to play. So as a lawyer, we always have to be forward thinking because you need to future proof the deals that you're doing. I mean, there's a significant investment being made, A, by studios or producers who are producing content, but equally as talent, right? It's also my future asset. Today, as talent, every part of my being is being exploited and is capable of being exploited. How do I prolong the shelf life of that product? So
Beautiful.
till I don't
I love
prove it, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Okay, amazing answer. And I never honestly thought of this paradigm that you just brought up. Okay, very, very important point that, earlier people are just literally in the contracts would be very plain Jane saying, hey, we're going to protect you from X, Y, Z. And now you got to think about so many more paradigms
Like when
coming.
we did music, we never thought streaming services would come and you only spoke about, what your revenue is on sale of a cassette or a CD or a record, and then it translated to the digital era. So I feel you just have to always, I mean, those of us who are smart and who had looked at things and, similarly the digital era transitioning now to AI and there's protection in that language. And I feel that's the beauty of it.
Do you right now in the contract then just say like any other new media streaming, blah, blah,
There's
blah,
a
blah,
lot more than that. There's like an entire page full of it at a bare minimum with sort of
wow.
preempts what sort of technology can you expect or what sort of things can you expect in the future. And just to put things in perspective today, for a lot of clients and a lot of talent, they don't realize it today. And we're like, listen, why are we fussing over it? But when I look at some of the legacy talent that we've acted for, who may not be in circulation at this moment or maybe 10 years from now, because there is so much safeguard, there is still income that's coming and that will keep serving even future generations if that estate is built correctly and protected correctly. So I feel people who see it from that lens understand the relevance of it.
Okay, terrific. And I'm so happy that at least some of the artists in the space have access to you and you're helping them future proof their careers and their livelihoods. So fabulous, fabulous opening to the conversation. Now, as you're thinking about the future, you've talked a little bit about digitization, tech, AI, you've used these buzzwords. Can we go into detail and try to explain to us what is happening in this sector and what do you think where is this puck moving to?
So I think let's start with the lowest hanging fruit, AI, because it's all over. I think it's all consuming suddenly. There's an observation usually in the entertainment industry that any technological challenge hits the music industry first, and the music industry is the fastest to react, adopt, evolve. Classic example, I think a few years ago, look at piracy. When piracy first started happening because of the internet, and then I would say streaming, right? And just see how much the industry has evolved when it comes to all of these issues. Similarly with AI, I feel more than, I mean, there's a lot of tools, and I think in certain shapes or forms it's always existed, more so in the last few years. And to the extent that tools are available that make life simpler, facilitate exchange of ideas, building of a product, enhancing it, I think it's always been welcome. The bigger challenge though is when you see entire soundtracks or entire songs that are made and just blindly in this name and style of so and just uploaded on the internet, and then you have somebody who's sitting at home in front of a computer and you're enabling that person to make revenue that is not rightfully theirs, right? I mean, it is, if that's not theft, what is? And I, for some of the legacy estates, again, that I sit on, that I protect, or that we've been advising, we've been actively sending out notices and pursuing legal action. And you'd be surprised how quickly those are taken down, because in most cases, either they're aware and they've done it just for the thrill of, let me put something out there, make something quick and move out till the next one. So it's almost like whack-a-mole as far as we're concerned. And in a lot of other cases, there's just plain vanilla ignorance, where some young kid thought that, hey, listen, but it's out there, I'm tinkering with this tool and so I'm doing it. So I feel for the entertainment industry currently, it is a severe threat. There's a lot of advocacy efforts in different parts of the world at a government level, at a policymaker level, to try and see what sort of safeguards can be put in place. Because, we think that it's not about being afraid of technology. I don't think entertainment's been afraid of that. If at all anything, it's always just helped us in the last few years, whether it's social media, OTT platforms, streaming services. I think what people forget is that it's directly affecting source of income. That's my main revenue stream, right? Me getting compensated or getting royalties or revenues for my work that's being utilized. हमको लगता है कि हाँ ठीक है, why should music make money? But if it doesn't, how else will I earn money, right?
And how else will you get more music?
If I had a career as an artist or as a songwriter, or so. I feel that's the bigger threat is how do you regulate use of AI in a manner that it acts as a tool that's enabling you, as opposed to something that just completely takes over other people's intellectual property, name, image, likeness, attributes, and just completely misappropriates it.
And are you seeing a lot of it happening? Are you seeing a lot of this happening? This
In various parts in Europe, in the US, I think if I'm not wrong, in the US recently, there's a bill that has also been approved to bring in some sort of legislation around AI. In Europe, there's already been a lot of movement, a lot of regulation that is being put in place. I think it's only a matter of time that, other countries and other territories are going to have to catch up with it because there is a direct economic impact.
there is a direct economic. Okay. Have you seen any cases out there where they're actually using AI to use this content, plagiarize it? Is
Well,
anything?
I can speak for some of the artists that we work
Yeah,
with,
of
right?
course.
Where we come across, songs that are being put out in the name blatantly saying, if so and so sang this song, this is what it would sound like. And some of these artists are alive, some are not, but still because of the legacy that they have, it automatically brings in the eyeballs. And we've been very active in taking action. Again, where technology enables you to do things like that, technology also enables us to take action. Every single platform that you look at today has a takedown mechanism where there is a notice and takedown. We can
Mm.
cease and desist, we can move court, and we've done it. We consciously do it. I think the only I don't want to say downside, because the way any talent would look at it is that it's an investment in me protecting my core IP and my asset, is that it's an investment where you're not really being compensated in terms of the cost that you incur to protect this asset. So that's perhaps the only sometimes a factor that might pull back some of them. But honestly, till date, I've not seen, everyone who we've talked to has been like, no, nothing doing. It affects the larger brand, the larger monetization of this estate or of these assets. So I must take action and nip it in the bud.
Oh, really? Huh? So
Yeah, we
that's
have a zero tolerance approach on behalf of clients that we've been acting for. If we see the slightest misuse, we've had
even
contractual protection.
if it's some obscure person in like,
Anything and everything. If it's some person sitting on Instagram and uploading reels and just sort of using buzzwords, somebody on YouTube, we have just taken a zero tolerance
oh,
approach to,
really?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, on behalf of some legacy artists that we act for. And we'll just
Also
take.
zero tolerance approach. And what are these people doing with AI? Are they able to replicate the voice? They are able to replicate the voice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And
you literally find songs in the style of Lata Mangeshkar, Mohammad Rafi, A.R. Rahman, Arijit Singh, and they're just put out there, and they're all unauthorized, right? Look, we're not saying if these were all authorized, it's a whole different ball game. I think if you look at YouTube, they've put in place a partnership with Universal Music where there's a certain cohort of their artists that has participated in it.
oh, I
So
see.
if that's the sort of collaborated effort, it also goes to show that the rights holder, Universal, the artists are all stakeholders, even in the resulting product of that AI. But
Hmm.
in the absence of that, it's still a form of infringement.
Wow. Okay. And it's a zero tolerance policy. You don't care who's doing it, obscure person, 5 likes, 5 million likes.
It's the same story with piracy, right? When you had pirated links, you want to take it down, you take it down. It didn't matter what was the revenue being generated out of it.
Is the law in India supporting this? Are you legally able to send somebody a notice saying, hey, this is an infringement because you have used
Yes, and
AI?
we've been actively doing it, and we've had 100% success rate so far. We've taken down every single instance where we've sent a notice, and the other side who's received it
Is
has
there
ended up taking it.
have you formulated a law? Like, is there a section XYZ that says,
Look, within the construct of the Copyright Act, there is enough protection, right? Because if somebody is ripping off the works itself, the composition and the melody, that in itself is an infringement. Now, whether I have a computer sing it and generate it, or whether I have a human being do it, if it is unauthorized, it's unauthorized, right? So
hmm,
there is protection there. And then the other form of protection comes within the Constitution itself, right? Your right to life, which also gives you the right to celebrity, the right to privacy, your attributes, all
hmm,
of that is protected. So today, if you are just going to emulate my attribute, my voice is my attribute. If you're going to do it without my authorization, I am entitled to take action. It's the same logic when I can prevent someone from making a biopic on me when you've not sought
okay,
authorization
right.
or permission from me, because you are then going to monetize or have some commercial gain on the back of my brand, my goodwill, my reputation.
Okay, wow. Okay. So as of now, there's no AI specific laws in India, but you're saying the existing copyright infringement
There's
law cover.
enough in the
There's
current framework. There's enough.
and is there work going on in the AI space specifically from an India perspective?
I mean, I do see some notifications coming out from time to time from different ministries, basically saying the same thing, that there is enough within the existing mechanism to make sure that even if someone wants to train their data sets, etc., then there has to be authorization sought. In fact, we saw a lot of early stage startups who were all setting up and very bullish about, we're going to build these sort of platforms and tools where we're going to have samples that are made available. And my question to them would be that, okay, what's your source material? What happens to that? Have you even taken permission when you're training your machines? And it's slowly now I see them shifting their position and saying, yes, even early days, we worked with a close group of people and we want to make sure that we've sought authorization from them. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Are you seeing any upside to AI? Are you seeing any upside from the artist perspective? Are you seeing any upside in your industry as like a lawyer? Because there's a lot of talk about how legal can be facilitated, mobilized through AI. So is there any positives to this whole AI movement?
Look, like I said earlier also, so long as it's being used as a tool to enable and to enhance, I think it will be welcome, right? It exists even today. Like I said, with entertainment, there are lots of tools that producers use, directors, crew members use to, make life simpler. Sometimes it will cut down, it could potentially cut down on production time, which means you end up making huge savings. Sometimes it's easy to do, various aspects of production, including filming in terms of doubles and stunts, etc. That might be simplified. Music, for example, I have the ability to sort of, where I don't want a particular, let's say, I think when a lot of budget constraints are involved, it might make life simpler if I have, licensed AI generated music that I'm using. Which is, might be generic in nature. But I think as far as law is concerned, or lawyers, and I get asked this all the time, I do believe that there's no replacing core lawyering, right? A lot of law boils down to interpretation. We can have AI to simplify the time that is being spent, and in a sense, perhaps make it even more cost effective for clients, because today lawyers are usually paid by the hour. Everything is a measure of the hours that we end up spending, right? But if I can use, there are AI generated tools that are available to bring down the time that's being spent on, for example, drafting or research, right? That's all going to help us, but ultimately it's going to still take a human being, because it's my talent, it's my craft at the end of the day, as to how I piece different parts of the puzzle together and what is my strategy or my sort of advice in approaching a problem. So I feel that there is not going to be any replacing anytime soon.
Okay, so you're saying it'll be a facilitator, it'll help you probably cut down on a couple of hours of work.
100%, yeah.
But what about all this buzz about like people can go and now generate their own contract and using these AI tools, etc.? Do you really think like that's a smart way of writing up a contract, at least a base level contract, or not really advised?
I would always worry. And I'll be honest, I think we've been approached by a lot of AI platforms or businesses that are looking at building a suite of these tools to seek help and advice on automation, right? So I feel there are sophisticated players that will emerge that have clearly taken sound advice on board and have, experts that are weighing in on all sorts of permutation combinations. I sit on the board of a couple of tech companies that are building these tools and products. A part of me is not opposed to it, simply because, and I say this especially with entertainment, and at the cost of it perhaps being counterproductive to my own interest, is I know that there is a general sense that, hey, legal advice is expensive and I can't afford it, right? And I come from the school of thought, especially having worked so much with creators and with talent, and I see the heartache it causes because they've not had access to advice. I come from the school of thought that no person should go without advice or without access to advice and tools.
Sure.
And that's why I feel, to the extent that I share a lot of information on my social media. If somebody reaches out to me, there's a lot of just saying, listen, it's okay, you don't need to pay us, but do XYZ, right? So I feel if there are tools that are available where experts have weighed in and it's sort of, sophisticated, I think for a base. So I feel like it's useful for people. It might be a useful platform for people who may not have ready access to legal advice or can afford it. So I feel for at least a base level starting point, if someone wanted to use a template off of an AI platform, subject to obviously it being sophisticated enough and has the right credentials, I think it's good access. So I wouldn't be completely opposed to it.
Okay. Okay. Terrific. Okay. uh, I think that's very good overview on the AI space. Can we talk a little bit about
Yeah.
streaming? And before you get into the nitty gritty, just educate us on streaming. What's happened and what's currently moving. Where's it going towards? And I know streaming is one of your subjects, so I'm very excited to hear this.
Yes, and I think, okay, so when it comes to streaming, I feel it's quite literally changed our world, right? Because I think I've been a part of the entertainment business at a time just before the entry of social media and YouTube and Facebook, and then of course came the streamers, which is largely your OTT platforms and your what we call the DSPs, so the Spotify's, Apple, and other music streaming services of the world. And I think it's been very interesting with how the revenue models have changed, the engagement has changed. We're such a, to a certain extent, become algorithm data-driven industry, which didn't exist if you sort of dial back a few years or decades ago, right? And I think with streaming, it's an ever-evolving ecosystem. I think if you look at, the music industry, and I'll come quickly to film and TV also, but let's start with music because, like I said, any technology, music sees the disruption first, right? So you saw YouTube, and then you had social media, you had your DSPs, and then you now have TikTok and Instagram in terms of reels, right? I feel with streaming, even the revenue model has changed so much. Everything has huge licensing efforts behind the scenes. I know it sounds very basic as I'm saying it, but I feel I need to say it because even today, a lot of people don't realize what an expensive industry it is. There are millions and millions and millions of dollars spent every single year by music streaming services, by social media platforms, for users to enjoy every piece of content, right? Every single feature that you see, and I'll use Instagram as an example. When we early days of when we could just add that sticker in
Yeah.
our stories, and sometimes you went to a particular song and it said it's not available in your region. What was that? It just meant that, hey, behind the scenes, Instagram was still trying to figure out a license with that particular rights holder for your geography, right? And today we see reels, and then you're able to slap it on. So every time I introduce a new feature, it sometimes even means I need to go back to the rights holders and get approval. And I'm not just going back to one rights holder. I have to go back to them territory by territory, by for different features, different parts of the world. So it's a complex negotiation, and it's ever changing because you can't, again, with a tech team, I can't tell them to stop innovating, right? They're going to keep coming out with tools and features, and as lawyers it means that, hey, wait a minute, when we put in place this license, this feature didn't exist, so maybe we now need to go back and check if we need extra approval. So there's a lot, and I feel it goes hand in hand.
So how does it work so meta?
Sorry,
Like
is it
Instagram?
breaking?
No, it's fine. It's fine. So
Okay.
does Meta, like in the parent company, have in contracts with the music production companies for a certain region, for a certain tenure,
Correct.
and then for a certain kind of exploitation that's permitted?
Correct. So
Okay.
early days, you couldn't, I'll give you another example, right? Early days, you could have just added the sticker, right? Today on your reels, you can even go and save a particular audio. You'll
Hmm.
save it still within the app, but it lets you save it so that you can go back at a later point of time.
Hmm.
Now, that act of saving is construed to be a different feature within the realm of copyright law,
Oh
and
my,
therefore that needs separate authorization.
oh my
Or
God.
I'll use
Wow.
another example, Spotify, right? You first had streaming. If you're just streaming it, it's a temporary copy that's being made and you're streaming it, versus when you have the download feature.
Hmm.
Now that download is the equivalent of you in the
Own
olden days, how we
copy.
would buy a physical
Yeah,
physical copy,
correct.
right? That needs a separate license. Then you add on to it that, okay, now lyrics are going to be displayed, which came in later. That needs a different license. So it's a complicated world of licenses, and there are lawyers and business affairs specialists or licensing specialists who are sitting behind the scenes every single day and making sure that the user experience is not compromised. And
Um,
at the same time, there's monetization, because now every user is also creator,
sure.
right? You can make your own content and put it up online. So how do you benefit from that? How are you being able to monetize it? And I think you see so many different revenue models. For example, every single piece of content on YouTube is the revenue is split between so many different parties, depending on, hey, did you contribute to the video, the audio, within the audio, what did you contribute to? And then YouTube takes a certain chunk of it, right? So these models are constantly evolving. I think last year, and last year Spotify was not forced to, but Spotify decided to revamp their entire revenue model with the music industry, how they accounted for revenue with artists, with record labels. And I think a big part of the reason is also technology again, because, because there's so much access to it, you also see a lot of streaming fraud. You see a lot of bot-generated streams that are not necessarily authentic. You see a lot of AI-generated music that's probably not licensed or authorized, but is just there, right? And all of that is affecting somebody else's revenue at the end of the day. So Spotify decided to come up with a new streaming module, and now we'll see how it works out. And similarly on the film and TV side, right? Because of OTT platforms, again, we saw a huge wave where anyone and everyone could turn producer. You saw every director turning producer, setting up their own production company, because you no longer needed to depend on external sources of financing. The financing could flow potentially from the streamer, depending on what sort of relationship you agreed to with them. Or even if you made something, you could try and shop it to them and you knew it would sort of balance out your cash flows, right? So I think the entire economy of the business has changed because of streaming, both on the film side as well as music. And then, so, I think social media and technology have had such a huge role to play in how the business of entertainment operates today.
Okay, great context. Let me try to understand this a little bit from a futuristic perspective. So right now it seems like there's an oligopoly, if not a monopoly, in terms of streaming, right? It seems like there are 2, 3, 4 companies that have a lion's share in this space. Are you seeing this trend continue, or are you seeing new age players come in and take over?
I think as far as music is concerned, it's already happened, right? I don't think music is just confined to, at least the revenue making isn't confined just to the big record labels as it perhaps would have about 10 years ago. The big record labels are the big record labels, and the majors perhaps will be here to stay. But you also see this whole new wave of independent music companies that today are making a complete killing. I mean, if you just simply took a look at their revenue numbers also, there's significant numbers to help them just sustain a business. Or some of the artists that we work for, just their I'm so happy that I'm seeing this during my lifetime, because I feel one of the first few matters that put me on the map was a huge royalty dispute that I did back in the day on behalf of songwriters, because they didn't see the sort of revenue that they should have in terms of royalties. Versus today, when I take a look at even a quarterly earning in terms of royalties, it's just so significant, and it makes my heart happy, saying that, okay, look, today it's a sustainable career option. And I'm talking about artists that are not necessarily touring or front facing or on stage, right? For years and years, people thought that, okay, if you have to pursue an entertainment career, then, you are front facing, camera facing is the person who's making the money. That's no longer true. I mean, today, even someone who's just purely writing music or writing,
So I meant more from the streaming perspective. Are you seeing, are you going to see new age sort of new streaming platforms come through, or do you think this sort of oligopolistic nature of this sector is going to remain?
I feel honestly, I think people underestimate the financial drain in setting up a streaming service, because either you're paying to create original content or you're paying to license content. And when you look at markets like India, which is anyway so difficult when it comes to converting someone to subscription, it's very, very difficult. So I would be very surprised if someone willingly wants to enter into a streaming business yet again.
Upfront? They pay upfront? Or is it a licensing fee basis, like the number of times a song is heard?
No, honestly, there's no metrics. I think there are so many factors, and it's all a matter of hype, demand, who is relevant at the moment, how badly do I want someone at this given point of time. And the revenue against that is, at least maybe in the immediate short term, limited. So I personally feel that more than new streaming services, you probably see a lot of consolidation of existing services and existing businesses in entertainment.
You see more consolidation coming through.
we are going to see it. We're already seeing it as a trend in a lot of the other markets. I think to a great degree, we've started observing it in India, and I feel there'll be lots of consolidation, at least in the near future.
Okay, and why is that? Why do you see this as a trend coming through? What's going on?
Look, I feel recently, for anyone who's been observing the Indian landscape, at least you've seen a lot of the music streaming services have virtually, sort of, I don't want to say folded, but found some innovative ways of just keeping afloat. You'll see a lot of bundling. A lot of music services, at least that was started by local companies, are now bundled into a telco, a digital newspaper subscription, or whatever. So you'll find covert ways of making the user avail of that service, because directly were very difficult to convert as a subscription audience. And then for the existing bigger players, I think consolidation is perhaps the way forward, just for the business needs. So, for example, if you look at the Sony Z saga, obviously there's a merger, there's a demerger, and then we'll see where it eventually rests. But look at Disney and Jio, right, and the merger that they're doing. Instead of having two separate platforms, now there's obviously going to be consolidation of their respective content, their respective feeds, so on and so forth. Because I feel particularly with India, it's a very tough market to convert from a subscription point of view. So you'll see lots of consolidation, lots of bundling. I feel these are the two trends that we'll observe.
Okay, and you see subscription actually picking up even more. Because right now it's a subscription-based model, right? Nobody really is paying for someone. And
I think you'll see more bundling, which is how you perhaps drive up numbers. But when I say bundling, it'll come bundled. I think Jio is a classic example, right? You buy a Jio handset and you have a bunch of services that will come bundled in. You already have Jio Savan that comes bundled in. You probably will have Jio Cinema and whatever other platforms that they have. I think you'll see more and more of that. If you look at Ghana, I think Ghana comes bundled in with sometimes subscription. You'll see Wink. That's not even, I don't think, actively even licensing third-party music. It's very limited, but comes bundled into your Airtel subscription. You'll probably see a lot more of that.
Okay. And a lot of this bundling you're talking about, it seems like the local Indian players and they're bundling within each other. Where are you seeing this sort of globalization trend? Because luckily, because India is like an English-speaking language country, right? We use Google Maps. It's very different from China. Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
So I was trying to pick on a little bit on the globalization theme, because we're an English-speaking country and we can sort of easily use these sort of products. Our government isn't completely protectionist where they say, hey, we don't want these American companies entering India. Where are you seeing globalization as a trend in the future? We have a glitch. Okay, could we talk a little bit about globalization as a trend that you're seeing? What's happening? Because as we said, India is a consumer economy where we can work with companies that come out of Europe and the US. So how do you see that trend going forward?
Number one, I think because of, just the... So I think there are a few different areas, right, where we can touch upon globalization. So I'll take it one by one and then you do what is this best. Something that we're seeing even outside of India. If you look at the US market, for example, you're seeing a lot of acquisitions, right? I think a lot of private equity funds that are heavily active in the whole media space, whether you look at CA and then sort of sale in terms of their equity. You look at someone like Blackstone that's backed Reese Witherspoon's company. Blackstone is anyway committed a significant amount of money. If I'm not wrong, I think they committed to spending $1 billion only in music rights acquisition. You have KKR that's quite actively involved in entertainment. So I feel you see a lot of these players focusing on the media business as a whole and wanting to participate in it from a wider global lens. You see lots of M&A. I think it's one of the most active spaces. I've never seen this much M&A in my career as I'm seeing now in the last few years. And, there's different players. There's private equity funds, or some of the more strategic entertainment businesses acquiring some of the other businesses. I feel people are also seeing acquisition, especially global companies, as a way of quickly jumpstarting their footprint in a they don't have presence in otherwise. You'll see this constantly with global streaming services, major record labels who want to enter a new territory, and the easiest way to do it is to acquire a local target and sort of set your footprint on the back of that organization, right? Because you inherit a catalog, you inherit a workforce. So you'll see a lot more of that. Equally, I think a trend that is the export of talent, which is again something that makes me very happy that I'm witnessing in my lifetime. And I'm going to take this as a whole from not just Indian talent, but South Asian diaspora, right? I mean, you're seeing so many artists of Indian origin, Pakistani origin, that are based in Canada, being actively signed by studios, agencies. So I'll give an example. Warner Music actually set up an imprint in Canada called 91 North Records, which is specifically for them to sign talent that's of South Asian origin based out of Canada. And, you have Jonita Gandhi as one of the artists who signed up, and Karan Aujla. So I feel like you see that trend also now where a lot of talent is being exported. So I feel there's a term in the music industry called globalization, which is it's no longer Anglo-American artists that are, necessarily popular. You have so many of these huge pockets of artists that are singing in their local dialect, but have an audience that's completely outside of their territory or region. And I think that's the biggest testament, right, to how global just generally the entertainment economy has become.
And we see this getting more and more localized.
It will, because of technology again and the access, right? Today, people are willing to travel to different parts of the world to see artists perform. You have different artists wanting to, I mean, look at India, for example. You're seeing so many more international artists now finally starting to include India whenever they're doing the, South Asia or South Asia leg of their tour. And then it's sort of starting to, the economics have started to add up. We're able to have more and more people who also believe, in making that spend, I feel, which is also a generational shift for us, right? The younger generation or the current generation is also now willing to spend on experiences. You didn't see that a while ago. It was more about saving, and you want to be stable and have that house, and you have that certain income, have a certain saving. Today, the spend is more on experiences, right? On travel, on holiday, the lifestyle, etc. And I think culture and music, entertainment generally becomes a big part of that.
Okay, so the change in demographic shift in demographic preferences, that is also contributing to this. Okay, last question on this whole tech digitization AI thing. Is there anything that worries you? Is there anything that keeps you up at night saying, man, this is where things could go wrong? Like, is there a scenario, situation, eventualities that you're like, man, this is like a red flag?
I think the only thing that would perhaps keep me up is how much tighter do I need to make language in a particular document, or how do you safeguard it? I think it's the ability to keep forward thinking, right? And of course, neither of us are sitting with a crystal ball, but I think as attorneys, as lawyers, the biggest responsibility on your shoulder is to future-proof a client's life and a client's business and career. So I think sometimes if you're working on something that's unique, it'll just sort of not keep me up, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that are we being creative enough? To preempt what all this is capable of doing, how this will monetize, and how, just to make sure that you've safeguarded it properly. But other than that, no, I feel like technology is a welcome change in all our lives, and so long as it enables and enhances and increases exploitation, it's everyone benefits from it.
Okay, cool. So you seem optimistic. You're just like, hey, it's going to come in. It's going to hopefully make our lives easier. And you'll also look like kind of calm about like the legal aspect of it. You're like, look, most of it is already protected. And if not, they'll have new regulation around this. So it's not sounding like you're deeply concerned about AI, plagiarism, deep fakes, all that. It doesn't seem to be really sort of giving you the shivers.
No, not from the point of view of that, hey, it's going to put us out of, currency or relevance, or out of business. So no, from that lens, it doesn't bother me. And I think from an enforcement point of view, because we've already done it, we've done a few cases on deep case now already on AI. I feel the more you do it and the more you are successful in innovating on how to take steps to take it down, the more confident it makes you that, look, even if it happens, there is enough within your means to take action and to, remedy the situation that you're in.
Okay. And circling back to the beginning, you said you're adopting a zero tolerance policy.
Absolutely.
That seems to be the norm. You're saying that, is that the industry norm where they're saying
Yeah. I think from an enforcement point of view, because look, that's the approach you gotta take anyway towards any infringement, right? And it's not that this is something that people are doing today. Early days of YouTube, also when you saw so many, illegal copies of your works being put up, you had people investing all their time, resources, energy in either employing third-party organizations whose only job was to enforce rights, or physically actually identify works that didn't belong to you, somebody else was monetizing, and take it down. So I feel this is another effort. Yes, the scale at which it's happening is probably is different. So
Yeah.
you'll adapt and make sure your measures in place.
Someone will come up with an AI tool to scan the internet to find these.
Honestly, there is. There are enough. There's enough fingerprinting technology that exists. YouTube has something, and I don't know if it's AI, but YouTube has always had something called Content ID, which
Okay.
helps you as a rights owner to identify if somebody's infringing your works. There's another infringement tool that detects infringement for as less as 1 second. So there's always been enough in place. I think people will innovate more.
Okay, this is very reassuring conversation. I feel good after talking to you. It feels like the artists are here to stay. They're going to be
Even
monetized.
my clients also say, so I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm very happy. And also, just also knowing that the lawyer's career and profession is also safeguarded. So the ecosystem as such is not set to get disrupted. The ecosystem is set to just adopt to whatever's coming, and it looks like it's going to be a win-win for everyone involved. Okay, terrific. Okay, awesome. Now let's move to like a little bit on the skilling part, right? As someone who wants to potentially enter the legal space, you've been through your journey. You told me about your highs and lows, and it's been quite a journey. You went to GLC here in Bombay, Government Law College. You've had your stint. Now, having seen what you've seen and having sort of a pulse on what the future is going to require from a lawyer perspective, just from skilling, what would you suggest that a upcoming ambitious young person who wants to enter your field should be doing? How should they be thinking about this?
One is language, and I cannot stress the importance of language. I know, again, it sounds super basic, but I'm amazed, not amazed actually, I'm quite dismayed and disappointed with just the lack of good writing skills. And I feel as lawyers, a huge part of your professional job, your ability depends on how well you're able to articulate yourself, both in writing and in person, or orally. I think we underestimate what a good written draft can do. You're writing emails, you're writing, even if you think that you're not a litigation lawyer, you're still writing emails that could someday be relied on, right? When you're even negotiating a deal. So just to be able to express and think clearly, frame it correctly, grammar. Yeah, I mean, number one, two, three, four, five, I would just say grammar and language are the most important in terms of skills. The other, I would say second, and again, it might come as a little bit of a surprise, is just have a sense of, the industry that you're catering towards. Look, I feel as within the legal, within the frame of you going to law school and studying your legal subjects, of course, you will, I take it that that's something you should know. It's like a doctor doing MBBS and saying that, listen, I mean, I take it that they would know the human anatomy, right? But I think outside of that, you just not having any sense of what's happening in that industry. I feel everything needs a commercial sense today, right? So I feel it's been a big part of the reason of for our success is that there is a commercial approach. I think a lot of lawyers forget that you're not in a courtroom where you are in this it's either my way or the highway. A lot of good lawyering is being able to find creative commercial solutions that makes the situation a win-win. When you're entering into a contract, it's the beginning of a relationship. I think sometimes lawyers forget about the principles that they're acting for, and it tends to become so personal and so aggressive, where you're like, no, it has to be this, but it doesn't, right? I think the craft of a good, competent lawyer is how can I keep improvising on this particular situation that's sort of become a deadlock. So I feel that is very important, and it's something that comes only with, of course, with experience, with knowledge. So I feel like sometimes you have to. It comes with the more years that you're in the profession, but I feel you have to understand the industry. You have to understand that, look, your client has brought you in so that you can get something done. You can be your job is to give advice and to find as many competent solutions as you can, and that's that. I mean, the last thing I would want to be is a roadblock in my client's own deal, unless I absolutely have to and put my foot down and say, sorry, this is my view. This is a really poor transaction. You shouldn't go through with it, which I do from time to time. But yeah, I
So
feel
you're
that.
saying like the legal study part of it, sort of the nuts and bolts of it. Then you
That
got
I mean, I take it, but I'm surprised even with that. I feel again with a lot of younger kids, it's TLDR, where a lot of their legal education, unfortunately, seems to come from blogs and headlines that they read. I don't know. I feel the days of someone, actually reading a case law or actually sort of looking into things in depth is kind of gone, because also I feel the attitude is quick, easy, right? So again, it's horrifying. And if I could, I would sort of run an ethics workshop once a month, just generally, because
okay. So since you
putting it
brought
up
up
to
this
groups.
ethics angle and what you would do, so what would you obviously in your capacity you're running the law firm, right? The onus is on the university system to educate this
Yeah.
incoming lawyer base. So if you were to advise the legal fraternity and the universities that are sort of doing this, what would you tell them to do now that you know the practical side of
Of
it?
course, I would say one is definitely run a more stringent ethics class. I feel they do such a beautiful job of it in Western jurisdictions like the UK, the US. With India, I feel that we could really benefit from a hardcore ethics class, and it could cover a wide range of things, right? Like confidentiality, understanding client attorney privilege, understanding what sort of information can you share, not share. And it sounds again something that's a given, but I feel so concerned. For example, I see a lot of young law school fresh pass outs, or even when they're students, their WhatsApp groups, and sometimes you ask them for something and it's becoming the subject matter of a discussion on a WhatsApp group, right? Even when you're being asked to do research or you're being asked to source something or find something, I don't think in that moment that particular student or young associate is stopping to think that, wait a minute, should I be sharing this in this fashion? It is confidential, privileged information, or it's something that could impact. So I just feel like a more real life sense of giving them more practical examples, right? On emails and forwarding emails, subject lines on emails, when to, even how to train your client, because clients sometimes don't recognize it and don't, everyone's screenshotting things and circulating things and recording phone conversations, and you don't know what is the evidentiary value of all of these things. So I feel like a more upgraded form of running an ethics class that's keeping with modern times, I feel is very, very important. And number two, I would say, is to actually teach them how to draft pleadings or contracts. I think it's taught to them in theory, perhaps as a subject, but until they're not in an internship, or sometimes even, if they only once they're first year associates are they actually doing a real draft. But I feel it's something so important from a practical standpoint to do when you're in law school. So I feel there has to be a more hands-on training on actually drafting real life pleadings and contracts.
Okay, so you said language. You said if school should focus on the drafting component and then hands-on, more practical.
Yes.
And there was one more thing you mentioned.
Ethics,
The
which is
ethics
a
class. So you're
professional training of
introducing
how
ethics.
lawyers should conduct
Okay.
themselves.
Would you go wider? There's this sort of T-shaped phenomena where you say you have your breadth area, so your
Yes.
depth area, which is law. In the breadth area, would you cover anything else? You've
I
sort of
would
spoken
say
about the
industries, different industries, right, have some sort of relevance of what are the quirks of that industry or industry practice.
Mm,
Because I feel in a lot of cases, industry practice governs a lot of commercial contracts, governs a lot of disputes that arise out of it, right?
mm,
And I mean, simplest example, which is close to home, is entertainment. In entertainment, a lot of things are, industry practice. So there's little room to reinvent the wheel and say, no, but I won't do it like this. I appreciate the enthusiasm as someone new to the system, but you have to understand that there is a reason why that practice has evolved over the years and things function in a certain way, like the relationship between studio and an actor, right? You might be an A-list actor also, and you'll still render services on a works for hire basis, right?
mm.
Now, why is that happening and what are the larger repercussions of that? So I just feel sometimes that little bit of you being clued into the industry that you eventually hope to practice in gives you that edge, which I feel a lot of lawyers tune out of completely.
And then are you seeing that also as a trend? Are you seeing your sort of hyper specialization in terms of law firm? Back in the day, it'd be like big law firm, and then you would go to them
Yes.
for everything. And now
Yes.
you're seeing this trend of like you're running a very specialized media and entertainment practice. Within that, there seems to be already a lot of stuff going
Correct.
on. Are you
Correct.
seeing that as a trend? And you see lawyers sort of specializing in these sectors?
Yes, I think I definitely see a lot of hyper specialization, and I feel like I see specialization at two levels. One is, like you rightly said, which is hyper specific to a particular practice group, and then you're doing just that.
Mhm.
And that's where you sort of call these so-called, there are these so-called boutique law firms.
Sure.
Then the other type of specialization I see, which is I think more about what someone like us, someone like my law firm does, is which is more industry specialization. So within an industry, will cater to every type of issue or practice group that I may need to be involved in, but I'm largely catering to an industry. So I feel these are the two specializations I see. My one advice again to lawyers or to young law students is, there's this urge very early on in law school to think that, okay, I'm going to do this type of law. Honestly, I don't, your specialization will pick you, right? When you're in law school, you've got to understand as many different legal subjects as you can, because you'll be surprised how there's so much of different permutation combination that you will eventually apply to your specialization, right? Like I gave you an example with what we end up doing. On any given day, we're doing, a custody battle issue if we're advising a celebrity couple, a divorce, testamentary, when we're estate planning, you're doing so much of
Wow.
M&A, because you have celebrities today who have set up their own family offices. You're doing corporate law. I feel like it's a plethora of things, and I am glad that that's the approach that I took, instead of sort of letting the industry did pick me in a
Sure.
sense, but I'm glad that I sort of kept my eyes and ears open, and we've built the teams also accordingly. So I would say that I feel a lot of young students rush to having, and the
Yeah.
pressure of it, right? That no, but what type of law you want to practice? But usko kaise pata hai, right? Like they're still in law school.
Still young.
So
Okay.
let them get a flavor of everything.
Okay, cool. So, and that also the university system should probably take into account and try to give them that sort of breadth exposure to different kind of law
Yeah,
practices.
yeah.
Okay, last question, then I promise I'll let you go. As you're seeing this sort of everything shifting, right? Paradigm shift, AI is coming in, work's changing, new jobs are coming through, etc. Are you seeing any new careers emerge where you're like, hey man, this doesn't exist, but like I think 5 years, 7 years, 10 years later, there's going to be this whole new couple of segments that emerge that people are starting to think about.
Like that. I don't know how much future thinking I can do on that front, but for example, I feel we never thought that, being an influencer is going to be a career,
Huh.
a full-time career, and you've seen the creator economy evolve.
Boom, yeah.
It's booming, right? And I mean, sometimes it makes, so I there's a lot to be said on that front, but I feel like you never thought that there would be these jobs. I see a lot of young kids again today who know that I'm going to, set up a social media business, and I feel they know so many other elements that maybe people like you and I might not be able to pick up on those skills. I feel they're sometimes more adept because they're technology native to use certain things. So I do feel maybe there'll be some sort of interesting jobs that we see around AI also. Like, for example, early days of social media, how celebrities needed help with somebody else managing their accounts and editing and posting. And, what do I do with this beast that's Twitter or Instagram? And I feel maybe more and more careers will evolve around technology and sort of bridging the gap between that generation that needs to have access to it or be on it but doesn't know how to use it, versus this current generation that is evolving with the technology and will be able to render valuable service and sort of be that bridge and go between.
Okay, because there will be a generational shift uh,
100%.
because of the rate at which technology is
Yeah.
accelerating.
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Okay, thank you, Priyanka. This was amazing. I know you're a media and entertainment lawyer, but you kept the conversation very, very real. It was great. There was a lot of depth in your conversation, and as well as the breadth, so that T-shape is completely being
Of
personified by you.
course. I'm happy to hear
And
that.
yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I think you have a lot of expertise, and I think there's a lot of need for people like you because I find the creative industry, they're really talented, but they don't know how to sort of channel, monetize, etc.
Not
So I
at
come as God's gift to these guys because they definitely need somebody like you. Also, the advice and counsel you gave for young and emerging lawyers was very, very valuable. So thank you for sharing all your insights and thank you for not charging me by the hour for this interview. This is phenomenal. Thank you so much. And we look forward to.
Such a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you, Priyanka. Thank you so much.